Hi, everyone, and welcome to Epic Church. My name is Rachel Wade. I'm one of the leaders here at Epic, and I am thrilled to bring to you tonight stories from the start. This is one of many celebrations that we're going to have in the month of February to celebrate 10 years that Epic Church has been in existence. And with me tonight, I have the founding families of Epic Church. Cue the confetti in the chat. Everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Before we get started, I want to introduce everyone that we have with us tonight. We have Ben and Shauna Pilgreens. I'm sure you know who they are. Ben and Lindsay Lee, Tim and Kristen Milner, and Brad and Mary Keels. Everyone, take yourselves off mute and say hello to the Epic family.
Hello. What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Everybody.
Hi.
Oh, well, we are so excited to be with you all tonight. We hope that you engage and know that this is your celebration because we are in this together. And so tonight we're going to hear stories from the very beginning. As you all know, we have a leader, a fearless leader that is always in motion and trying to point us toward the future. But before we go to the future, we want to take a pause. And we want to look back and remember what God has done. We're going to recount stories of God's goodness and his faithfulness so that it can propel us into the next 10, 20, however many years God says Epic Church be here in San Francisco. We want to remember those stories. We want to laugh tonight. We're probably going to cry tonight. So get ready. I will first just ask Ben to talk first a little bit about the vision of Epic Church, how God laid this dream on your heart. How did you form this team? Take us back, Ben.
Wow. Well, Rachel, thanks for letting us reminisce. We haven't been together, this original team, in quite a while. Where did it start? Oh my gosh. November 2008. I'm teaching through the life of Esther at the church that Sean and I were on staff at in the Midwest. Thought we'd be there for a long time. Seemed safe. We had a new house. We had 3 little kids, 1, 3, and 5 years old, 3 boys. And trying to tell everybody in that congregation, like, go be Esther, go do the thing that's hard but right. And it was really through that God led me to go, Ben, what about you? What are you doing with your life? And what we were doing was great, but we really had this sense that a lot of people would be willing to come do what we were doing. And so then is it starting a church anywhere? And if so, we thought, well, it should be a major metropolitan area where, from what we could tell on the outside, the church wasn't thriving. And so long story short, 5 cities we looked at: New York, Boston, Chicago, San Diego, and San Francisco. And San Francisco is the only place I had never been out of those 5 cities.
Wow.
Sean had spent a day in San Francisco, I think. So we started thinking, praying through that. And, more important, and I'm not just saying this because they're all on the screen, but more important than where we would start this church is who would we start this church with? And so, early on, I remember reaching out to Lindsay and Ben, casting a vision, like, this is crazy. I don't have any answers. I don't have any money. I don't have any experience in this, but would you guys think about it? And shortly thereafter, Tim and Kristen reached out to Tim. By the way, Shauna and I had done college ministry, and that is a very important part of this conversation. So I met Lindsay Lee when she was a freshman at Louisiana Tech University. And I met Tim Milner when he was a college student, as well as Kristen Milner when they were at the University of Alabama. I got to officiate both of those 2 couples' weddings. So that's super exciting. Brad and I were in the same class at the university we attended in Louisiana. So we were both, we graduated high school in 95. We met the spring semester of 1996. And so Brad and I, we were college students together. And then when I was Lindsay and Ben's campus minister, Mary, Brad's obviously now wife, she had the same position that I did, about 30 miles down Interstate 20 from where we were living and working. So so college ministry had a lot to do with this. And so long story short, for Brad and Mary, their story's fun. When you're going to start something from scratch, you think about who do I know that has a heart for God, me, and has a little bit of money? And so literally, this is true story. I started a Facebook message to Brad. Hey, Sean and I, we think God's calling us to start a church. We'll talk about how we got to the where. And I started literally going, hey, I'd love to share the vision with you. And I literally remember hitting delete. And I said, hey, Sean and I feel like God's calling us to start a church. Do you think you and Mary would be interested in doing that? And I think I did like there weren't great emojis back then, but I think it was some semblance of a smiley face, really thinking like, that's crazy, but whatever. And so long story short, I was speaking at a youth camp in Florida where Brad and Mary lived. Before we did that camp, went to their house, cast the vision in person, stayed up late talking. Thought if I could convince Mary, maybe Brad would want to be a part of it. No, also left there, did the camp, and we were driving back to the Midwest, got a call from Brad and Mary letting us know that they were in. But we were at a place where cell service wasn't great. So Shauna, I think they said that they're in. So that's how a lot of that original story happened. As far as San Francisco, before Brad and Mary were apart, the other 6 of us, we felt like it was the Bay Area. Tim would say, hey, I've been researching, looks like San Francisco. Crazy people would ask me questions like, my sister's in San Francisco. Ben, if you were there pastoring in that city, what would you say to her? And nobody knew that was the thing. So we didn't think the city, we thought the Bay Area. On January 18th, 2009, the 6 of us flew to San Francisco. We had 4 days, and this is crazy. I don't advise this, but we asked God to show us where to start this church in those 4 days. We looked south, we looked east, we looked north. We spent 1 day in the city. It was supposed to be a tourism day. And I'll let these guys chime in, but it was becoming clear to me that the thing I least expected, being called to the city of San Francisco, was happening. But I didn't want to use my role to say, this is what we're doing. So I pulled the van over on Highway 101, going to have dinner with new friends in San Jose. And I just said to them, hey guys, tell me what you think. And I'll let any of them take it from there.
So that leads us to, I want the real honest reactions from all of you on when Ben made the call to each of you. What was your initial reaction? And then finally, what made you say yes? So we'll start with you, Ben and Lindsay Lee. What was that initial reaction and what made you say yes?
Yeah, wow. Just thinking back to that, I think the initial reaction was just like, wow, whoa, like this sounds awesome. But we wanted to take some time to pray about it. And so we took 6 weeks, and we actually decided we were praying together, but also separately. And we decided we're going to pray about this for 6 weeks. And at the end of the 6 weeks, we're going to come together and like sort of reveal what we feel like God was saying to us. And so I remember that moment just hoping like, I feel like it's yes. I hope it's God said the same thing to him. And then he did. And so, yeah, I just remember it being really exciting. What was your first thought?
Well, I was initially very excited because, I just the idea of doing something that was, an adventure. And there was a time where Ben and I actually crossed paths in seminary, and we would actually commute to Fort Worth, Texas, once a week. And a lot of that conversation was a lot of what ifs. What if we went and did some crazy adventure for God? And I was, I really loved doing mission trips and going, we would go skiing and doing different things in cities. I love cities. But I was also in this place in my life to where I really wanted to do something that was just kind of, adventurous. And so, but in kind of the prayer, aspect, it just seemed like, what, God kind of built me to be willing to take some risk. And, we were in a position, financially kind of, where we felt like we could take those risks. And I think the funny thing for the confirmation part for me, as far as actually going to San Francisco, as everybody knows, I'm a huge like movie buff. And I felt like for 6 weeks, every movie I saw was based in San Francisco. And it was just the craziest thing. So
I love that. Oh
Yeah.
my
And
goodness.
I think it was really easy when we felt like God was saying, yes, I want you to do this. It was so easy for us to say yes to Ben and Shauna. And you'll see this thread throughout. But I had known Ben since I was a freshman in college. And Shauna, and we'd seen them faithfully follow God and trust God with their life. And so not only were we trusting God with this, yes, but we had so much trust in them and how they were following God that we're like, yes, we want to go start a church, but we want to go do this with you guys. Yeah. So it was really exciting.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Tim and Kristen, what about you? What was your initial reactions to Ben's ask and what made you say yes?
The story that really sticks out in my mind, we had about a year and a half left of seminary, and we were in New Orleans, and somebody approached me and said that we'd like to pay for you to finish free. And it just like, I don't know if you've ever had a thought where on paper everything seems perfect, but in your gut you just don't feel good about it, and it's like that just doesn't feel right. It's a great opportunity, but it doesn't feel right. So after church on one Sunday, I said, Kristen, we have this dorm and there was one closet. And so I said, Kristen, I'm going into that closet and I'm not coming out of that closet until God tells us what to do. And I'm not a person who does that kind of thing, but we definitely did that day. Well,
he's only ever done it one time.
I've only done it one time. And so in this closet, I'm on my knees, I'm praying. I said, God, please show me what we're supposed to do, because like I feel like a decision needs to be made about going to school again or not. Well, I didn't think it through, because after about an hour, to be honest, I just had to get out and pee. So I get out of the closet and I freshen up and I'm about to go back into the closet because I'm serious. I'm not leaving this closet until God gives me clarity. And as I'm walking back to that closet, a thought enters my mind that one of my best friends had said, Tim, you should come and start a ministry in San Francisco. And he quoted, if I remember correctly, a Forbes magazine article that said that more college students, when they graduate, move to the Bay Area than anywhere else in America. Now, again, that article is probably 15 years old now. And I just thought, I said, I think Ben should know about that, because Ben is this incredible college minister. And I just think he should know that there's all these recent grads moving to the Bay Area. So I walk over to my computer, I send him a quick email, and I promise the computer in that closet is only about 15 feet away. So I hit send on the email, and I guess, Ben, you got a ping on your phone or something, emails. So within seconds, my phone, it's Ben Pilgrim. His voice is the only time I've ever met Ben at a loss for words. You remember this?
Yes.
He said, all I hear is, I got to put Sean on speakerphone. So I put Kristen on speakerphone. And he's like, I just read your email about maybe, all these college students in, San Francisco and starting a ministry out there. And he told me that he had just recently got off the phone with someone who asked him to come start a church in San Francisco. And now he's reading my email. And, I think Chris and I, we got those chill bumps. And I can tell you, in that moment, I was all in. Like, it didn't matter what happened next. I know I was going to San Francisco.
Thankfully, I also wanted to go.
Yeah, thankfully, yeah. and with me.
He was going with her without.
Yeah, I would.
You mean before, you thought that after he said yes is what you meant.
After Kristen and I discussed it.
Yeah.
And
well, I will say, we had a look in our eye like, wow, we visually knew that we were doing it before we even had to say it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a special moment.
Oh, I love that story. Brad and Mary, what about you all? What was your initial reaction to Ben's ask, and why did you say yes?
Yeah. So I remember, so for me, it was through Facebook, and I just remember getting that message from Ben. And when I started reading the message, I thought, well, he's raising support and stuff like that. Then when he said, would that be something we'd be interested in? I kind of took a pause for a minute, and I was like, well, let me think. Living in a beautiful part of the country in a city, doing something I love doing, sounds like the Holy Spirit to me. And, and I took it seriously, but it almost didn't seem real. It was surreal, And I told Mary, and about it. And then I think Ben even reached out to Mary and said, because at that point I hadn't been leading worship for years.
Well, you received it as a joke.
Yeah, and I kind of thought it was just kind of a joke, because Ben and I, we've known each other a long time, and at that point it had been years since I had been leading worship on a regular basis. And then I think he reached out to Mary and said, I think maybe Brad thought I was joking. I'm serious. And and so at that point we and just to give you a little context as far as why we said yes. When we were still in college, I was finishing up pharmacy school. I mean, we were just living off of Mary's, we were living off of loans and Mary's ministry, stipend that she was getting at the BCM. And we both had really felt like God would have us doing missionary work one day overseas. And, but we both knew that once I got out of pharmacy school and my income went up, that would be really hard, that would be hard once we got more comfortable. And so we decided before I graduated, before our income increased, before the comforts of all that entails happened, that we put our yes on the table to God. And we said, God, I don't know when, I don't know where, but the answer is yes. Because whenever you say go, I don't want to have to think about it. I just want to go. And because the decision's already been made. And so, so fast forward all those years later, and with Mary and I are confronted with this, and we reach out to some friends of ours at church, actually just right down the road from where we're living now, and people we really respect a lot, had them praying with us, and just I don't remember how long we spent praying with them about it, but we realized this was the time, and that was the place. I'd never been to San Francisco. And once we got there and I got to know the city and reading about the city, I realized it's like, this is like being overseas, we both have a heart for China, and the neighborhood where we lived for so long over there was predominantly Chinese. And so, so many things that God had worked throughout our history just fit together like a key in a lock over there. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Brad stole stuff, but really, I think the key for us really was just, the yes was already there from us. It was just a matter of, is this the thing that God has for us? And so I just feel like it's so important as a believer that it's yes. Like when you say yes to Jesus, you say yes to everything that he calls you to. And so knowing that you've already said yes, it's just discerning whether it's the Lord or not. And so for us, it was just a matter of discerning, was this the Lord? And of course, Ben was super slick. By the time we knew about it, there was all this beautiful paperwork and graphics and numbers. And
there was a prospectus. Was there a prospectus at that point?
No, I mean, he is so good at what he does, right? So we didn't have to have as much faith as Ben and Lindsay and Tim and Kristen, because it looked a little more polished.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So that takes us to that very first vision trip that you had. Ben kind of talked about it in his beginning, about you had 4 days when you came to San Francisco. You're all from the South. So tell me about what that experience was like coming to San Francisco as a group for the first time. Any funny stories that you'd like to share about that first vision trip when you came to San Francisco? Anything that shocked you or surprised you when you came on that first vision trip? Ben Lee, I see you kind of smirking. Do you have a story for us?
Well, probably. I don't know if I'm stealing thunder here. We actually decided to keep it as cheap as possible, and there's a hotel down just south of SFO that I ironically for about 5 years had to drive past, driving the 101 to Redwood City where my job was at the time. We all shared a hotel room together and basically just pushed the beds together and just kind of staggered husband, wife. A few of them get on the floor.
Wait a minute.
So that was a, yeah. And I think Ben can tell more detail, because it looks like he's just dying to do that.
Okay. Go ahead, Ben Pilgreens.
Okay, we didn't choose to do it cheap. That's the only option we had, the 6 of us. So the way we did it, the plan is couple 1 got bed 1, couple 2 got bed 2, couple 3, which was Ben and I were like, we're going to take it for the team. We're going to sleep on the floor. But after we had worn our feet out walking the city, because we weren't used to city walking, we came back and men are like, we got to come up with another plan. That's not going to work. We're not sleeping on the floor. So our plan was we're going to push the beds together. And the way we had to sleep is that you had to be sleeping by your spouse. And then on the other side of you had to be a person of the same gender. So I think the way it went was
We were in the crack.
we were definitely on the crack. But it was like Lindsay, Ben, me, Kristen, Tim. I mean, if we were to switch right here, it would be like this. But anyway, and then if you got up to go to the bathroom, your spouse had to accompany you to the bathroom in the middle of the night. That was
Oh my word.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
It worked.
Whatever it takes to plant a church.
So I call it Hotel 6. That was not the name, but.
Any other funny stories from the beginning vision trip? All right. So once you guys decide to come to San Francisco, take us to, well, first, what did your family say? We would love to know that. What was your family, your extended family say about moving to San Francisco? And what were those early weeks like once you landed here in San Francisco? So Tim and Kristen, we'll start with you.
The story that comes to my mind is, I guess, if you're going to talk to your wife's mom about something like this, you should think it out and not just. So we were just sitting around the kitchen table at her mom's house, and I said, hey.
Well, we had just got married about 4 months prior. Right?
Something.
It wasn't. Yeah, so we had not been married that long.
And I was like, hey, we're moving to California.
Okay, there's some backstory to this. I was supposed to say it, and I couldn't say it. I was like, I just kept trying. So I look at Tim, and so he just said it.
Yeah, and I didn't think that might impact her. And so she started crying, and it was really awkward. And I'm still asking for her forgiveness all these years later.
You're taking that baby away from her.
Yeah, that's kind of how that was her take on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just remember the thing that really surprised me was, as somebody already mentioned, was that city walking. I was like, I've been walking my whole life. This isn't going to be an issue. It was an issue. I mean, it's horrible. I remember I felt like my legs were going to fall off. Like 2 hours on the first day.
Oh my goodness. Brad and Mary, what was your family's reactions, and any funny stories or crazy stories from when you first got here?
I'm trying to think with my family. I mean, my mom, she was all bummed out that we were going to be living so far away. But honestly, I think because she knew that we were so missions minded, that I think when I told her we were moving, I think she was half expecting us to be moving to China. So when I told her San Francisco, it was not quite as bad, you know? So yeah, but she was still like bummed out and sad and everything. But I mean, overall, they were supportive.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Same. So my dad, was of course sad, but he was supportive. He's like, I just want you to do what God is leading you to do. I don't ever want to stop that. But as far as early memory days, we had 2 little people when we came with us. And so they were 3 and 5. And so I just remember like this moment that was just, it was a hard moment. It was that we had gone to the grocery store, which is only a couple blocks from us, the one on King Street. And, the kids had taken their scooters, and it starts raining on us as we're walking home, and the sidewalk gets slick, and Carter hits like a manhole cover, and he slips, and he like hits his head really hard on the ground. And so like we like sit down in the grocery bags, we're like making sure he's okay or whatever. And then we're like, okay, we just have to get into the building. And so we pick up the grocery bags, and they fall apart because they're paper. And like,
I forgot. I think I blocked that one.
Yeah. No, and it was just that, it's San Francisco is, sometimes not as friendly towards families. And so that's just like that kind of my first I think, glimpse into that moment. Not that the city did anything unfriendly in that moment, but it was just a hard moment, and it was all fine. It was all fine in the end.
Right.
But that was so much
hard during the moments. And Ben and Shauna, you moved with small kids too. So what was that like for your family, having small kiddos in the city at first?
Yeah, well, I think from our extended family, they were super supportive. I mean, if you probably could all hear my mom in the back of, if she were here, like, Shauna, I think this is the best thing. You love Jesus. This all just makes sense. So they were supportive the whole time and still are. As far as bringing the kids along, yeah, I mean, they were excited. Ben Lee touched on it. Like, it was an adventure to them. They were all excited about this. And, but of course, it looks different when your feet are on the ground. You think about Tim talking about us having to learn to walk the city and our feet falling off. Kids don't go at the same speed that you need them to go to in the city. So I remember we even had a jar, and it was like, okay, if we can follow the rules on the sidewalk and not run into every human being between here and the next block, we're going to put some coins in and we'll eventually go get some ice cream or something. But it was stressful moving the littles to a big city, because not only are you trying to adjust, but you're trying to get them adjusted as well.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay. So we're now here. We're in San Francisco. Talk to us about what it was like to get people to Epic Church. You didn't have a location at this time. So how did you get people in the doors, and what were those first few preview services like? Ben Pilgrim, we'll let you start off.
Yeah, I mean, all of us moved out there with plus 5 kids. And then Josh Hamilton, who's still in our church now, which is amazing. He moved just 2 months before the rest of us showed up. So that makes how many of us? Not a lot. Not a lot. So yeah, 14 of us, but I'm just going like, when is person 15 going to come? And so variety of things. Ben and Lindsay and I coached Little League Baseball that summer. We coached Elijah's team. Ben didn't have a job yet, and Lindsay, we didn't have a church yet, so they had some time. So literally, we would be at Balboa Park, which is in my neighborhood now, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. We did that. Tim was meeting people if they blogged about church, moving to San Francisco. That's how he met Chad Etzel, who's in our congregation still. Tim connected on Craigslist with an investment club. I mean, he can talk more about that. So we're doing that. We're meeting people in each of our apartments. We're having cookouts.
Because we all lived in
3.
Yeah, that's true. We lived in 3 different apartment complexes.
Tim and Kristen and Ben and Lindsay lived at Bayside Village, still right there on the Embarcadero. Brad and Mary were at Strata, a little further down to Mission Bay, and we were at the Avalon.
And back then, Strata was about the only thing
on that
Mission
block.
Bay.
That's true.
Yeah.
So we did.
Strata. When we
you live there?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So we would do cookouts and go to each other's place. We would do launch team meetings at our house. I remember when the concierge buzzed us, because a couple of months in, it's just still the same core group. And she's like, there's a lady here a young woman here to see you. She had heard about our church from a friend, some other state, came to the launch team meeting. Another couple, John and Whitney Campbell. Whitney was our first hired staff member. They came over and had banana bread. Is that what we had at our park? I just remember having dessert because they had found us online. But we were doing marketing also. We were, we would do direct mail to 20,000 homes around Soma. In fact, our first 3 internal board members initially came to Epic because they received a piece of direct mail. So Ben Chelf, Dave West, Ernie Shin, Ben and Ernie still on the board, still in our church.
We had mission teams that would come that were helping us get the church off the ground. And we would utilize them to hand out granola bars and invite cards. I remember our kids, because these invites were coming into the mailroom in our apartment complex as well. And our kids would just be so distraught when they saw them on the ground. Like, why would anyone throw this on the ground?
This would be a great time for Lindsay and Tim collectively to share about that time we ordered 100,000 invite cards.
Please do tell. What in the world? I know the budget didn't support that. Go ahead, Lindsay.
They were like business size cards, right, Tim? And we had, I felt like a really strong plan leading up to Easter about how we were going to get out those 100,000 cards that came on a pallet.
I think we successfully got about 15,000 of them passed out.
Oh my word. Oh my goodness, that is hilarious. Okay, so preview services. Where was the first one? What was that like? Please tell us. Let's see. Brad, worship team, how'd that go?
Oh yeah. So who remembers? So who remembers like the church on what was it, Judah down there that helped the, what was it, ninth? Anyway, but they let us do the practice setup. Like our whole goal, like what was it, like a week before the preview service or something, so we could practice setting up the equipment. Like in the whole goal, like my big goal for that day was just to get it set up and turn it on, and have nothing blow up or nobody die. And so I think we were successful in that. And so the night before the previous service, so we had a van. It was like a 15-passenger van, and we had like I think it was like an 18-foot trailer or something like that, full of all of our equipment. That thing was cram-packed. We had a secure parking facility down in South San Francisco. So I would go down, get that trailer. Mary would drive me down the night before to get the to pick it up, and then I would drive it back to Strata, because back then there was nothing else over there. It was like the apocalypse happened on that side of the bridge. So we would, so I would park it there in front of Strata, and then get up at, really early in the morning, drive over to the W Hotel, and so the W Hotel, which it doesn't look this way now because they've done some different things, but back when the fire department was there, there was you could go up this little alleyway around the back. What was it, Natoma? I think it was. You could drive up there, and there was like that one thing. It's kind of almost like a one-way thing. You could just drive through and go back out onto Howard Street. And so I would pull this big trailer in, and every Sunday I would pray, "Dear Lord, please don't let there be anybody in that drive-through area, so I can just drive straight through." And I would say it was probably that way. I probably got the drive straight through maybe 50% of the time. So what typically went down is I would drive this big trailer. I would stop it in that little parking lot back there behind the W, and I would have to, like Austin Powers, turn that thing around like this. And meanwhile, everybody in the fire department, I'd never driven a van and trailer. I'd never pulled a trailer before in my life. Just a little further context. But meanwhile, while I'm doing that, all the firemen are sitting out there like this with their coffee and just laughing, and so provided lots of entertainment for them. And so anyway, so we would do that, unload. I just remember the night before our first preview service. So getting back to your question, getting back to that first preview service, the night before, I don't think I slept at all. Just praying, Lord, please just let the stuff work, let all the, just all the crazy technical stuff. And, it's all a blur. And then just praying that people would show up, right? Just praying that people would show up to do stuff. Because at that point, we didn't have like a tech team or anything else. I mean, we were kind of just trying to figure stuff out. We were trying to learn stuff on the fly as much as we could, and praying that God would provide people that could do this stuff better than we can. And but the first preview service, when it came time, thank the Lord, everything worked, and we were able to get through it. And so, I just remember being so relieved and just totally exhausted after that.
Oh my goodness. And about how many people showed up at that first preview services? And even, I'm sure Ben Pilgrim knows for sure. What was the number?
132.
132.
Yeah,
he probably could tell you every name of them.
Of every person. Yes. Oh my goodness. Wow. So Brad, he actually alluded to our next question, which is, now we are known pretty much for being very well produced. We've got a very good online campus going now that we are in this pandemic. Before we got into the pandemic, we started our online services, and we've been growing and rolling with the times. We're very polished. Back then, tell us about what it was like in production and who was running what, who was doing what. I'm sure you were all just doing one job, right? Tim, you want to go first?
I think almost all of our graphics were initially made. I think I made a lot of them on Pages, Cole's
Wow.
version of Microsoft Word. It was pretty bad. It's kind of amazing. This church made it because of the graphics.
Well, one thing I did, at one point, I was the sole member of the security team. And did I wear a headset? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, it was me. And I did a good job.
That is amazing.
Just kidding. There were never any issues. So, but yeah, that was one of my big roles.
But hey, I mean, I'll add to that too. Like, I think with the preview service, like probably the coolest thing to me about it was, I mean, I know like there was incremental progress all along, but that first preview service, like that for me is the first time when this idea of a church, you could actually see it with your eyes. And so like there was something really cool and really special, because up until that point, it was just months and months and months of like just abstract ideas, but then to be able to see it. And I remember we had like the W Hotel wanted to charge something like $100 a gallon for coffee. And so and we were planning on having coffee, but at that price you couldn't bring in your own coffee. So I remember we had the coolest free water you could ever imagine. And it was like little cut up fruit in it. And I just remember like being able to drink that water after months and months of planning was really satisfying.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. Well, thank goodness we have coffee now. And that's hilarious. Anything else from Ben and Lindsay Lee, Brad and Mary, you tell us, what were some of your early jobs and the beginning days?
Well, I remember Ben referenced Josh Hamilton, but he literally bought a book about audio and sound so that he could learn how a soundboard worked. Because as you heard us say, like we didn't have anyone who understood that. And Ben was helping out with the tech and AV as well. I remember you talk about video. We had like a camcorder, like a legit camcorder that opens up on a tripod in the back of the room. And not only was that what captured video of the message, but it's also where the audio came from. We didn't know at that time how to grab the audio from the board and match it. So like if someone walked in front of the camcorder, if someone sneezed in the back of the room, that's what you got for on Sunday online. And yeah, there was something very scrappy and unpolished about it. I remember one night at like 11 p.m., we discovered, Tim and I, that one of our kids' signs got ripped because we had these posters, and we're like, we can't go into tomorrow with a rip, like people not knowing where to bring their kids. So we found a 24-hour FedEx Kinko's like on California Street, and him and I go like just before midnight, get that new sign, come back, all just to make sure that everyone had what they needed. But I think seeing God show up and seeing God, as Tim said, just bring this faith community into existence and reality was really cool. Even with all of the scrappiness, it was really fun too.
I love
And
that.
Rachel, I would add, we were all so, like Tim said, we were all so happy to be there. We were willing to do whatever. Like there was no like, well, that's not my expertise. Like we were gladly willing to do whatever. I remember we had our boys, like their toys growing up, that's the toys we started Epic Kids with.
Wow.
Well, we couldn't get rid of it because we're going to need that in the nursery. I think I picked up a lot of goldfish in those early days.
And we wouldn't know always where we were meeting during the week. They would put us outside on the terrace, then we'd come inside. That's what really led to us getting our own space and freeing Brad and answering his prayers of getting rid of that van and trailer.
Oh my goodness. See, so right from the start, we see the foundation of Epic Church. You guys would adapt and adjust and move with wherever God said to move. But that foundation, it's in us. It's in the members that are in our community, because we have those same type of volunteers and people that are serving. We need people for AV, people step up and do AV. We need people to be at Bessie Carmichael to serve the pantry. People step up and do that. That is in us because of all of you who said yes to a dream that God put on Ben's heart. but then your commitment to excellence and that foundation is in our DNA at Epic. And so I want to recognize that, because that is who we are now 10 years later because of those investments. So that is so fun and to hear how it started. So what have been some of the greatest blessings in your lives and in your family's lives since starting Epic? I know we could go on for days and years with stories because that's how good God is, but give us one or two. I'll start with you, Brad and Mary.
You want to go?
No, you go ahead.
All right.
Sorry.
I feel like I monopolized the last time. So,
No.
yeah, I think one of the biggest blessings, I feel like we really had the opportunity to get good at building deep community. I think when you're surrounded by family, it's easy for that to be a weakness, you know, because you always have your family nearby, you know. And so out there, it's very easy. It's easier to get good at going deeper with relationships. And so I feel like, you know, when we moved out there from Florida, when we moved to San Francisco from Florida 10 years ago, it was hard because we were leaving family and it was sad. And it felt like some sacrifice and, you know, whatnot. But after living out there for 10 years away from family and building that community, and Mary particularly is so good at, she's one of the best people I've ever seen at building community. And I feel like moving back from there in a lot of ways was even harder, because a lot of those relationships were so deep, so deeply rooted and so meaningful, that I don't know. I mean, there really is there's just a depth and a pull there that is, I think that's one of the biggest blessings, are just those deep relationships that have really been meaningful.
And I think for me, I would say just, God is working everywhere, right? So you're not, wherever you are, you're not missing out on what God is doing. But for whatever reason, this to me felt really special. And it is special, this thing that God is doing in San Francisco. He started doing long before we even knew it, right? But I think the greatest blessing is we had the privilege of stepping into it. We got to be part of it, and our kids got to be part of it. And it's just a huge, huge privilege that, yeah, I know not everybody gets, and I'm glad we did.
So good. Ben and Lindsay Lee.
Yeah, I think it's the community. I mean, it's the people, you know, on this call right now. It's the, you know, the friends and who have become family, you know, and I think it's even more so, I mean, just the opportunity to build relationships with people around the world, you know, that I've met, that I feel like I have, you know, deep relationships with. And for me, having had the chance professionally to kind of, you know, dab my toe in the water of Silicon Valley and that type of thing, and like to build strong relationships there as well has been amazing. And so I think it's, you know, just a testament to when you're willing to take a step of faith, you just don't know what type of opportunities and doors will open and who you'll meet and how that can literally extend around the world.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you said it. The blessings are just too many to count. For me, one is like, we came here with no kids. Now we have 2, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I think one of the biggest hopes and prayers for our children is that they would grow up in a family of faith where they can learn to trust God and follow God and see that not only from us as parents, but from a community of faith, a church. And the fact that our kids get to grow up in Epic Church is just like unbelievable to me. And it's something that I'm so grateful for every day. And then for myself, you know, gosh, for these last 10 years, people I didn't know existed who are now best friends and family. people like we only dreamed and prayed about, but could never imagine, like that God knit together as this community called Epic Church over the last 10 years. God has used this church in my life to encourage me and to bear my burdens and to carry me and to pray for me and to love me and to help spur on my faith. And so I just, yeah, it's just the biggest blessing to be a part of it.
Yes. Tim and Kristen?
I think there's so much but I mean, I think being part of this is, I'll say, one of the, if not the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I mean, it was incredible. And I think just a couple of those highlights would be, I don't know the exact number, but I was able to, Ben allowed me to get to baptize just dozens of people in those first few years while I was there. And I still think about those memories frequently. And I think just one thing that's like just really kind of screaming in my head right now, I just want to like publicly just say thank you to Ben.
Yes.
Be able to be able to serve alongside him for those first 5 years. And while the Lord has put different mentors in my life at different times, there's nothing like what I've learned from Ben Pilgrim. And I was able to take those lessons and that experience and to see what it looks like to be a pastor and what it looks like to be a leader and to be a friend and to go and then start a church that feels very similar to Epic in my own hometown. And so I don't know, man, I there's no way to describe everything that you have done for me and everything you have taught me. So thank you, Ben. Thank you, Epic Church.
And I'll echo what several have said. Yeah, when Ben and Shauna asked us that, it felt like an honor and a privilege. And I think Mary said it felt like something really special just to be a part of. And so I think we felt that even before we moved out there, but then we're living there, and it just the whole time we were there, it just felt, like I said, an honor and a privilege just to even be able to witness what was happening and see the people coming. Like, I think the first preview service, I was near the elevator, and every time I heard the elevator ding, I was so excited because then we got to see someone come off. And so it just, the whole thing just felt so special. And another thing that's just been a gift to me outside of, I guess, being on staff and other things I've previously said, we had our first two daughters in San Francisco. Wasn't near family, really didn't know what I was getting into having kids, especially in a big city. But almost every Friday, myself and a few other moms would get together at a playground or a park. And that was so life-changing for me. Even now, my oldest daughter is almost 9, and I'm still sometimes calling those friends from those play dates on Fridays. We would just select a park and go to them. And Lindsay, Lee, Connor came right after our first daughter. So that was just really special. I got to learn from Shauna, seeing her raise 3 boys. And Rachel, I know me and you had play dates, and Mary. So for me personally, I was the youngest of everyone, just getting to watch. I love now how I went to go to San Francisco and be a part of a church plant. But now that I've removed from the situation, I realized like that whole thing was really a huge blessing to me and who I got to spend my life with and learn from. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you. And Ben and Shauna?
When Ben started this conversation with me back in our bedroom in Missouri, what do you think about this? Before we got on the phone and reached out to these other 3 families, it started as a casual conversation. And to what Mary said, I have always said, God, yes, there's my yes. So when Ben said this, I mean, I think I spent a few days praying on it, but I was like, you got my yes. And I knew if no one else were going to go with us, we were still going. So my biggest blessing in all of this is that we did not have to go alone. And I think that, like Rachel, you've pointed out, that's just woven. It wasn't intentional. Obviously, it was God ordained, but that no one that moves to the city of San Francisco and steps in to Epic Church will ever be alone. And it's just a part of who we are from day one. We would never go at it alone. God has intended for this church to all be about doing life together. And it's part of our mantra now, but it's what we were living back then. I remember we had not lived here long, and we were homesick and probably still, living a little bit of culture shock. But I remember we had taken the boys to Old Navy to get some $10 jeans. And I walk out of the dressing room and Ben's like, they're all here. I'm like, who's all here? He's like, the whole staff, they're here. Like, we got to do something. We need each other. What do we go do? And I remember Ben treating all of us to Ben and Jerry's ice cream down in the basement of Macy's, and us sitting outside of Union Square. It felt like, Dad had come to town and was treating us all to ice cream. Like, from the very beginning, we needed each other. We were dependent upon each other. And to me, that's just been the greatest blessing, that we did not have to do it alone.
Well, you're proving that one of our values of together is better. That is 100% true. I think as you all have talked about your stories tonight, I'm thinking about Hebrews 11, right? That's the by faith chapter where we see someone taking a step of faith, and some of them saw that come into fruition, but some of them did not. And the by faith of this is that God gave Ben a vision. Together, you guys carried it out. And then you go to Hebrews 12, and then you read about how they had the endurance to keep going. And that endurance is what we're going to need to go into the next few years at Epic Church. And so thank you to all of you for being our by faith, by having that courage to say yes to the vision that God gave you to plant a church here in San Francisco. And the beauty of it is those 9 values that you all prayed about and talked about, we actually are getting to see those values lived out right now. I mean, sometimes you don't get to see that, but we know that life is better together. We've seen leaders that are being developed, right? We know that Jesus does change everything. People are orienting their entire life around Jesus because of that step of faith that you guys have done. And that's just the start of it. This is just the start, even though we are 10 years in. And so congratulations on starting something that is still sticking. And we thank God and we praise God for what he's done in the past. And we look forward to the future. And we're just so grateful for each and every one of you. Before we leave and we close out today, I want to end with a silly and a serious. So here we go. First, silly. Never would you ever believe that. Ben and Shauna, how would you end that statement? Never would you ever believe that.
The first thing that pops to my head is that my 6-year-old son would have to cover my eyes on the Embarcadero because naked men were on their bikes. As we were all going to celebrate Ben Lee getting a job. We were all together on that night.
Never would you ever believe that Tim thought if he put an Epic t-shirt on a mannequin in the lobby that would make people sign up to volunteer.
Oh my word. Ben and Lindsay Lee, never would you ever believe that.
I used to be the Epic Kids director.
Brad and Mary Keel, never would you ever believe that.
That at the Sunday evening service, there would be more people on the stage than there were in the congregation.
Oh my goodness. And Tim and Kristen, never would you ever believe that.
I would never believe what I saw Sunday morning for my church seat that was Beta Breakers.
Oh, yes. Look that one up if you don't know, everybody. And now we'll go to the serious. So let's see, encouragement for the next 10 years, the future of Epic Church. What would you say to those that are watching today and that will watch online? What is some pieces of advice or encouragement as we go into this next chapter at Epic Church? Ben and Lindsay.
I would just say, I would encourage everyone at Epic Church to be willing to take that step of faith, because whatever you feel like God might be leading you to, however small or however big it might seem, take that step of faith, because God will blow your mind and you cannot even begin to imagine what could be on the other side of that, growing closer to God and then getting to experience his presence, his faithfulness, and his people like this.
Tim and Kristen?
Never underestimate just how influential San Francisco is. Just from being now on the outside looking in, San Francisco may be the most influential city in the world. I just want to encourage the Epic Church, man, stay hungry to see Jesus move in the lives of the people of that city.
Brad and Mary?
Mine would be, if you are a Jesus follower, put your yes on the table and hold on. See what God's going to do.
Oh, good. Ben and Shauna?
I have two. One, pray crazy prayers. That's how this thing got started. We were willing to pray the crazy prayers. And thing two, no experience is necessary. In other words, if the 8 of us can leave the comforts of the South and the Midwest and come out here and do jobs we didn't even think we were going to be doing, all of us can be used to continue to move the mission of God forward in this city.
So good. Well, Epic Church family, we love you so much. We miss seeing you in person. We will gather again one day. Stories like this, stories from the start, remind us of God's goodness and his faithfulness. Keep hope alive. Know that the reason why that you are here is because a group of people that didn't have all the answers stepped out in faith and said yes to God. So with that, we love you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.